Hi, it's a rainy day here and I'm feeling a little sick, and I wanted to share how I live sort of a limited or low tech life. Comparatively, it might not be that low tech if you really try to pare things down, but as a person living in the age we live in, I'm figuring out what my limits are and what's a healthy relationship to have with technology. So I figured I would share. Certain books have influenced me along the way. Probably the most influential book that I've read so far that really convinced me about how important and values driven this is for me is The Life We're Looking For by Andy Crouch. I highly recommend this book. Yeah, it's coming from a Christian perspective, so if you're not Christian, just be forewarned that that's pretty prominent in here. It's just so grounded and helpful and gave me the paradigms I needed to figure out how I wanted to relate to technology. Highly recommend. Other books, Restless Devices by Felicia Song. I've read part of it and I'm working my way through the rest. Stolen Focus by Johann, I think is how you say his name. Digital Minimalism by Newport. This is a very popular one. And I started and absolutely need to finish reading How to Do Nothing by Odell. So those are some of the things that have influenced me along this journey. I would love to hear anything in the comments of things that have impacted your experience of relating to tech. So please share. In the area of TV and movies, we have opted in our house not to have a TV physically present. It's just this omnipresent black screen always taking up space and always sort of calling you to watch something. At least that's how I kind of experience the presence of a television. And we also have kind of limited space. So we decided to get a projector. It's nice because it also takes a little bit more setup to get to watching a movie or a TV show, because we have to plug our laptop in or pull out the DVD player. And then one other switch we've made more recently is only watching a movie when there's a specific movie we know we want to watch. In the past, and even sometimes now, we're sort of I feel like watching a movie today, but don't have a specific one in mind, and then we're just kind of filling that with whatever movie. Whereas now we're trying to be a bit more intentional to have a movie in mind and watch that movie, or have a movie that friends have strongly recommended and watch that movie. So related to my phone, I have decided pretty much for sure that I don't have any notification noises or vibrations, and that includes for text and phone calls. It makes me harder to reach, but I just don't want to be on call all the time, and that's a choice that I've made. I will turn it on if I'm waiting on a specific call or text that I know I can't miss. But even in those moments when I have it on just for a small stretch of time, I'm just this is so annoying to be pinged all the time by my phone. Demanded that attention, so I just can't do it. And I learned that in middle school, actually, when I had my first phone, a simple phone, text and calls. When I had the vibrations turned on for those texts and calls, even when I wasn't getting them, I would hear the phantom buzz. And I was okay, this is not okay for me to have this turned on. And then I just turned them off. And ever since then, I've never had them turned on for any of my phones, even once I switched to a smartphone. So that's just a personal preference, and I find it very freeing and very good for me. Also with my notifications, I generally take the strategy of if I can deal with a notification immediately, I do. If I can't, I leave it unread, but I really don't let those notifications pile up if at all possible. That does mean that when I am on my phone, it's sort of I'm dealing with all these tasks that have piled up of different notifications. But for most of my emails, I can just dismiss them and be that's not urgent, I can deal with that later. But around texts, it's really helpful, especially because I'm not feeling burdened by all these unresponded texts piling up. I'm either going to respond in the moment or I'm going to leave it unread for a period, but then I'm going to respond. And I really like functioning that way. It just feels like I'm keeping my phone clutter-free. I'm not getting stressed out by it. My husband, he uses something called Minimalist phone app, which is an app that modifies Android phones to be incredibly simple. It's all black and white. It's like list view rather than these like colorful apps that make you want to click on them. And he has different settings that he sets for certain like more time consuming or addictive apps, where when you click into them, it asks you, how long do you want to be in this app? Or are you sure you want to go in this app? And has a little countdown to make you wait and think about it. That's a really good resource if you need like more bounded control around limiting your phone. And the other thing I do that I think is really important, and I actually wish everybody did this, but it's fine if you don't. When I'm around people, I try not to have my phone physically visible. Like if I'm sitting at a table, I'll put it under the table or away in my bag. Because when that phone is out, it's communicating to the people that I'm with that I'm not 100% present with them. Even though my phone doesn't have any notifications on, it's sort of this subtle message saying, hey, there's other stuff here. There's other stuff that might take away my time and attention. And then there's the added layer of the like social contagion that happens when one person in a group gets on their phone. Everyone else, you can witness it in real time. Everyone else slowly picks up their phone and it turns into this phone moment in a group of people. So I just pay attention to that. Even when I'm standing in line at the grocery store or waiting for something, I try to notice when other people around me are on their phones. I feel that pull towards my phone and I try to not just be on my phone when I'm in those waiting periods. Specifically to social medias, I cannot handle TikTok. I downloaded TikTok 2 different times, sort of tried it out. Short form video media content is just so addictive to me, and I don't have the self-control for it. It's just really consuming. Props to you if you can handle it. I cannot. So TikTok is not for me. Also, for all of my social medias that I do use, I don't have any notifications turned on. So I actually have to go into the app itself to see if there's anything that's happened. So Instagram is one of the social media apps that I do still use. I use something called distraction-free Instagram, which is a free modified Instagram that works on Android phones. Sorry to Apple users watching this video. My distraction-free settings that I use on Instagram are, I have Reels disabled, I have Shopping and Explore disabled, although I never really used those, but once I started eliminating other distracting elements, I wanted to get rid of those just so I didn't stumble into them as something new to get addicted to. So the only things that are enabled for me on Instagram are my feed and stories. I've thought about disabling stories, but they've become a pretty big part of how people interact and engage, so I haven't eliminated that yet. Hey, was editing and realized I totally forgot to add that I use the Stay Free app to limit my daily usage of Instagram. So I have it set to a limit of 10 minutes. And that came after a full year of being off of my personal social media. So I was off of Instagram, off of Facebook, although I broke Facebook a lot. And then when I came back to Instagram, I was like, I want to limit this to 10 minutes a day. And I've been sticking by that pretty much and find it helpful. And the other thing that I do on Instagram is I, as much as possible, try to engage like a connector. The way I see people engaging on any social media platform, there's sort of this spectrum. There's lurkers who hardly ever post or never post, but take in content from their friends or organizations or people that they follow. The other side of the spectrum is influencer, which is they're putting things out there. They're posting, they're sharing. The way that you can sort of know if you're an influencer is if every single person who engaged with your content was like actively responding to you and engaging with that, would you genuinely be able to respond to every single one? And if it wouldn't be possible, then you're probably more of that influencer category. I know there's technical definitions of what an influencer is, but this is just for the spectrum that I'm describing. The third way that I think you can engage on Instagram is as a connector. Connectors are people who are sort of engaging in mutual give and take of their both sharing and replying. They also might like connect people to each other, like they're linking to other accounts. They're facilitating connection. And yeah, as much as possible, I want to engage on Instagram and any social media platform as a connector. And there have been times where I've been more of a lurker. There have been times where I've been more of an influencer. Generally, I'm aiming to be a connector. Facebook is another social media platform that I still choose to use. I really appreciate Facebook Marketplace. I think it's an excellent resource for buying things secondhand, just sustainability efforts with the stuff in the world. And I've heard that if you don't have a profile with sort of like history, people might be less likely to buy or sell from you because you seem more sketchy. So for now, it's worth it to me to keep my Facebook profile for that reason. Also being a part of Facebook groups, like I love buy nothing groups for the same reason that I love Facebook Marketplace. There's also great groups for connecting around your interests. You can find community for pretty much anything on Facebook and somewhat active, engaged communities. I know it is the older crowd is sort of on Facebook these days. Not so much people in my generation. I'm technically Gen Z, but very cusp. And I use Messenger to communicate with people as well. But I only have Facebook accessible from my laptop. So I do not let myself access Facebook from my phone at all. And the reason why, it's too addictive to me. Like I'll just go on there and scroll for no reason if it's on my phone. And when they added short form video content to Facebook, when they integrated that, I got sucked into it and there was no way for me to disable it like I had on Instagram. YouTube is probably my most struggled with social media at the moment. I think once I pared down Instagram and Facebook and really got a handle on those platforms, YouTube became my new sort of vice. So I'm figuring that one out, and now obviously I'm starting to make some videos, which is a different layer of engagement, and again trying to do more of that connector versus lurker presence on YouTube. We'll see how that goes. Some of the things I do for YouTube are on my desktop. I use distraction-free YouTube, which is similar to distraction-free Instagram. You can disable certain addictive features. The only thing I really disabled for YouTube on desktop is that sidebar. So when you're watching a current video, it'll recommend you videos, and they basically algorithm to get you to keep watching videos as much as possible. So now I don't have that sidebar anymore, and if I want to find more videos after I finish the one I'm watching, I need to go back to the home to find a new one. Or more often what happens is I'll scroll through my home a little bit, save some things to watch later, and then I'll just go to my watch later playlist and watch some of those videos. We'll see if I figure out better ways to limit this app in the future. Pinterest is another social media I do use, although not as actively as I used to. So at this point, Pinterest is sort of a catalog of things I've saved in the past. I am an artist, so I like to use Pinterest for interesting reference images or researching certain ideas I'm trying to think about. But there is a lot more AI art being put on Pinterest, sadly, so it's not as reliable as a source as it used to be. So I kind of have it as this catalog of things I've saved in the past, and it's just not as big a vice or a distraction for me. And finally, Twitter or X. I never liked the format of that. Short sound bites and people shouting into a crowd of other people shouting was not for me from the get-go. I can see why people like it, and a lot of things from that platform get reposted to Instagram. So in some ways I feel like I get a filtered version of Twitter and don't have to deal with the mess of it. Same with like Blue Sky. I have been interested in Blue Sky, but not enough to actually join it. And Threads, no way, not getting on Threads for Instagram, especially because once you get one, you can never remove it from your account. I find that very sketchy and weird. So I'm just never going on Threads, not interested. The other thing I wanted to talk about around like a low or limited tech lifestyle is how I handle bedtimes and mornings. I think this is really important because these are things that really form and shape us, our daily routines. And if we're engaging with tech in unhealthy ways around these daily rhythms, that influences me even more. So what I do during bedtimes is I have blue light filters on all my devices. I use the built-in filters on my phone, and then I use an application called Flux on my Mac. Flux gets really strong filtering, and it's based on the time of day that it is and when your bedtime is. Amazing app. Highly recommend. And that's just really important because you don't want blue light going into your eyes when you're getting ready to sleep, because it will disrupt your sleep in pretty major ways that other people can explain more thoroughly than I will. The other thing I do around bedtime is getting off of my phone and my laptop. Ideally, it would be about 2 hours before bedtime. I'm no longer on devices. Might be watching a movie on the projector, but not like actively browsing or actively on my phone. And then in the mornings, I don't check my phone for as long as possible. As soon as I check my phone, I feel like I've plugged into the like technological reality of my life. There's just all these things happening all the time in that tech space. And if I can have breakfast, if I can have a quiet time or journaling, if I can have peaceful, non-tech start to the day, my day is so much better. Some other random things that I thought of to maybe include that might be helpful. I have a website. I created it in college. It's handy. I can post on a blog if I want, and I have a portfolio and a resume available. I just find it's a helpful tool. It means I'm not as dependent on like Instagram or LinkedIn for things like portfolio and job related stuff. I do have a LinkedIn. I like never touch it. I use dark mode and dark backgrounds whenever possible. It makes the screen less intense and consuming. Also, having some analog options for things. I love having lots of books available. Very simple, enjoyable, low-tech thing to do. My friend very generously gifted me a typewriter that I love to use for letter writing, poems, typing out verses that I want to remember. It's a wonderful, wonderful analog tool. So thank you so much for listening to me ramble about all the ways that I have chosen to be limited or low tech in my life. I hope in some ways this could be helpful as you figure out your own relationship to tech. And I just want to say, all of this is the ideal. Sometimes I break some of the habits that I shared with you about, but I'm really living my best low-tech life when I do stick to all of these things. Thanks.